Welcome to the Iroquois Central School District Board of Education meeting. There are two recognition of guest periods, one for agenda items and one for other topics. Please refrain from personal related comments and address those to the appropriate administrator. To speak, fill out a proper form and submit it to the district clerk. Public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, with each speaker allowed up to 3 minutes. This meeting is held in public rather than a public meeting. And while we won't engage in dialogue tonight, we are listening. This meeting is live streamed and the recording will be posted online. With that, everyone please rise for the pledge, which will be said by Elma Primary third grade students, Adeline, Leone, and Hadley.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Picture now. This is the part for your parents so they can get a picture.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the student report, which will be given by middle school students, Olivia, Natalie, Savannah, Gina, Raylyn, and Logan.
Turn it on, it's not on yet.
There we go. Well, good evening and thanks for having the middle school here. It was 2 short months ago I was here and I presented you, Mr. Schofield, with petitions for a snow day. And the students knew I was coming again tonight. And they said, "Where are the petitions?" And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't put anything together." But they wanted to send you a quick little message. So if I can...
Mr. Schofield, Iroquois students would like to say,
Snow day! Snow day! Snow day!
All right? All right. Now, right before a break, I don't know how you could ever think, even if there's a snowflake out there, we can't get that. But from the students, there you go. Okay, there's been a lot of things going on at the middle school, and I just want to share a few of those with you before I turn it over to our students. First off, I know many of you were able to attend the drama production, and thank you so much for that. We had 3 advisors, so many support volunteers from the high school drama that also came down and helped. Parent volunteers were all there doing such a great job, and of course all of our students, and it was a fantastic production. So thank you guys for your support, supporting those advisors and that opportunity for us to actually put on that presentation. The next thing I wanted to just bring up was our Connectivity Day. Again, you guys help us and support our foundation team. We just had one recently. The kids really enjoyed themselves. The staff work exceedingly hard putting together different activities for the kids to do throughout the day so they can connect and learn to know each other and work with each other better. 2 highlights of the day. The ITAC ambassadors from the high school came down and they presented to the whole middle school, and that helped foster a lot of connections and provides role models for our students as they go up to high school, as they listen to these students share some of their experiences in the middle school and the high school and the challenges that our students face today. So thanks to the ITAC and the ITAC high school ambassadors for coming over. And then finally, for the first time, I think in a lot of years, our whole student body was actually able to go in and watch at least the first act of the production of the drama play. And I think that was really nice because a lot of them don't get a chance to come back and see it. So it exposes more of our students to that. So it was an enjoyable day, and I want to thank our foundation team. And then finally, last week, if you were unaware, It was National School Counselor Week. We have two fantastic counselors that do a wonderful job in our middle school. They're extremely dedicated individuals. They work tirelessly to support a lot of the emotional and academic needs of all of our students. God bless you. Now, Ross and I are not really creative or artistic, so there's not a lot that we can do, but we did go out and buy a lot of food for the week, and we're kind of food guys. The counselors enjoyed it, so we did celebrate them with that. Most importantly, if I was to share with all of you tonight this, I hope it would mean that you know that we have a student in our 8th grade, and this is his symbol and his family symbol. Our counselors are working with that student, his family, his classmates, his teachers. And I can't thank them enough for what they're doing. So keep the middle school and especially that family in your thoughts and prayers. And at this time, I would like to turn it over to one of our teachers. You've heard us speak about her and some of the things that she's done. In fact, at the last board meeting, I spoke about Ms. Widoka. She took our 8th graders out to Genesee Valley and they looked at various trades. The students were exposed to some of that. Most recently, she just brought some of our 6th grade students to compete in an event that Erie One BOCES had that they will speak to you about. She's also the individual that a lot of our primary students get a chance to come back once a year and runs the STEM night. And again, all of these things we appreciate and thank you for your support. So without further ado, let me lower this down and invite Ms. Widoka up.
Good evening. I stand before you today filled with gratitude and excitement as I express my heartfelt thanks on behalf of my students. Thanks to your unwavering support and generous funding, our students had the incredible opportunity to participate in the Cardboard Arcade Challenge, a hands-on, innovative learning experience that fostered creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Your investment in unique opportunities such as this goes far beyond materials and logistics. It empowers our students to dream big, take risks, and see learning as an exciting adventure. You are not just funding programs, you're fueling curiosity, resilience, and a love for learning that will stay with these students for years to come. I sincerely thank you for believing in the power of hands-on education and for continuing to support experiences that make learning come alive. We are incredibly fortunate to have a board that values creativity and innovation in education, and we look forward to sharing more student successes with you in the future. I'd like to introduce Natalie, Savannah, Gino, Rylan, Logan, and Olivia, who will share about their Cardboard Arcade experience.
Congratulations on all those awards. The only one thing you are lacking in your presentation is the time period for us to actually play the game and have a little competition set up, so I'll look forward to that tomorrow. So we can't have a snow day so I can come and play.
Thank you.
Maybe not so close.
Okay, now we'll move on to board discussion and news worth sharing. We'll receive an update on the Family Support Center from Chris Hershey, Director of Student Services, and from Julia, Director of Family Resource Center. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Now what? Oh, we're getting there.
Chris and Julia, you're going to give the budget today.
All right,
John,
that's
you're doing the
cool.
Family Resource Center.
John, buckle up. You have some good spending things to talk about. All right, thanks again, guys, as always, for letting us come up here and talk with you about all the wonderful things that are going on with the Family Support Center. Unlike the past few times that we've been here, I'm going to close my mouth because I talk a lot. I'm going to let Julia, the one who's really doing all the work on the ground, provide you with most of the information. I'll just stand by here to help answer questions or to really support Julia. But again, thank you so much, for allowing us to work through this throughout the course of this year. So with that, Julia, I'll turn it over to you.
So since the last time you guys saw me, we really didn't have a lot of programs up and running. We were still in the process of building that foundation. I think so. So coming back to you guys in February, we now have a fully functioned program running up in the main campus. Horizons Health Services started the 8th of January of this year. So since then, we have that program up and running. They're providing counseling services in school during the school day, which helps eliminate some of those barriers for families regarding transportation, insurance, office hours in the afternoon, as that can be a struggle for some families. So in front of you, I have a picture of the district and then the surrounding areas of the district. Those blue dots that represent some of the partnerships we have built regarding basic needs. So that comes with financial insecurity, food insecurity, help with transportation, care coordination, anything like that. The red dots represent the mental health services that we've partnered with that have been provided. So that includes mental health counseling, as well as substance use counseling, care coordination, and then the 6 independent therapists, Tranquil Waters, and then the Phoenix Therapy and Wellness. Those are all independent therapy practices that also specialize in certain modalities of therapy. And then we also have other partnerships that are not represented, such as Alden and Akron Central School District, Legal Services, the Triple P, Crisis Services and Transitional Services.
You're okay. I was monkeying with things back there. You're okay.
So we don't have these represented on here yet because those are partnerships in the making, or they are virtual services that can be done at home. We also have a couple of Horizons Health Services and Violante Health Services, as well as Endeavor, have multiple locations, so I only did specify one location on that map. Partner and provider benefits. So with the partners that we chose to partner with and provide services for the Iroquois community, helping eliminate barriers and meeting families where they're at. So that comes with the whole purpose approach. The whole person approach is kind of just meeting families where they're at, what they can do at this moment, and how we can get them to move forward. Identifying those resources to accommodate barriers such as insurance, transportation, office hours, and locations. Especially being in a more rural populated area, transportation can be a really big barrier, as well as those office hours. A lot of providers and practices don't offer a ton of after-hour services, especially if that transportation is larger. They have to travel a more extended distance, as well as if children have after-school activities or parents work kind of the same amount of time as a clinic is open. Credentialing of the clinician and provider, that includes those specifics. So if some clinicians or providers aren't credentialed through the state for insurances, we chose those specific partners because they accept majority of insurances, so families don't have to pay out of pocket. Internal references and services provided. So going back to Horizons Health Services, they have been in our district since the 8th of January of this year, so a little bit over a month. Currently, we have 28 internal referrals for the Family Support Center. 6 of those referrals are for outside provider referrals for mental health. 4 of those specialized referrals are for specialized, so going back to the providers that do specialized modalities, whether that's anxiety, depression, or any challenging behaviors. 6 internal referrals for the Family Support Center include food, clothing, and transportation or government assistance. So those were those blue dots that were represented. And then 2 were mentoring and tutoring programs.
Before you go on, Julie, really quick, the hardest part to quantify in this whole thing are the individual stories, which we can't get into here clearly, which we'd be happy to talk more about those at other times with you guys, but it's the individual stories of families that Julia has been able to engage with and assist that wouldn't have necessarily had the help that we were able to provide. There are some pretty critical need families. We mentioned, we briefly touched on one last time we were here. Since then, there's been 2 or 3 others that have provided feedback to us that have basically said, listen, without this opportunity, we have no idea what we would have done. There are families that move into the district. It's a variety of families, so that's hard to quantify. The other piece of it is when you look at those situations, the pace at which those services can be put into place, really, if you think about previously when we didn't have something like this or like Julie in place to work through our school counseling system, it just takes longer. You know, for Janice as an example, to have to work through those things while doing her job with all of our other kids, it takes longer. So the time that this has saved counselors and social workers on the ground is also very tough to measure. And I don't want to leave here without mentioning those, you know, those concepts, because it's much more than, you know, the numbers show. There's just much more quality, I think, to the support than what we can really substantiate with numbers. So, Julia.
I like that qualitative of what you said. Oh, maybe you're doing it now. Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. So just an update on that Horizons. So like I said, they've been here for about a month. We have one clinician here 1 day a week. She's here on Wednesdays from 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. She currently has 22 students on her roster. So in that month, we were able to gather 22 students who feel that they need this specific service. We also have some students on the wait list, just unfortunately having that clinician here 1 day a week. We are working to have her getting here 2 days a week to be able to shorten that wait list. We currently have 11 students actively engaging in counseling services, so they've already been through that intake process and they are doing weekly or bi-weekly sessions with the clinician. We have 6 awaiting their first intake appointment, so they're either in the process of being scheduled, and then we have 5 awaiting to submit referrals. In July of 2025, we are looking to have the current clinician that is here on Wednesdays here a second day, so on Thursdays, 7:30 to 3:30. So when they are here 2 days a week, we would be able to service about 45 to 48 students with in-school counseling services. We are continuing to look for counseling appointments throughout the summer, so the clinician that is here would be able to continue these services throughout the summer if the family would like. If the family would like to take a break during summer, they can end in June and then pick up again in September, right where they left off. An update with Violante Counseling. So this is a private practice that we have partnered with to be able to provide in-school counseling services at the primary levels. Unfortunately, with Horizons and MOUs, the contract, we can only have one address, so we chose the majority, which is main campus. And then with Violante being private practice, not a clinic with the state, following OMH rules, they have a little bit more leniency. So we're able to have multiple locations and addresses on that contract. So we have a clinician starting at the end of February. They will be there 1 day a week on Thursdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. They're only able to service about 5 students within that time period. Unfortunately, the clinician that we have partnered with is currently contracted with another clinic until the end of May. So at the end of May, we would look to extend those hours to a full day in Alma and a full day at Wales. We currently have 3 referrals for the primary in Alma to be able, so when she does start at the end of February, she's able to kind of just get right in there and start servicing the students that we have the referrals for. Right now, we aren't looking at Marilla Primary at the moment because they don't have the highest needs. The highest needs are currently at Alma and Wales, but we will continue to monitor Marilla Primary to see if those services do become a higher need, and then we would look to add that clinician on a 3rd day, a full day at Marilla. Current partnerships in the work. So we, like I mentioned at the first one, we have partnered with the Family Help Center Kinship Program, as well as Alden Central School District and Akron Central School District
to develop a kinship support group for grandparents and great-grandparents raising students within the districts. So when we did our community needs assessment in the beginning of the year, we noticed that we have a very large population of grandparents and great-grandparents raising their grandchildren. We want to be able to provide support as a couple of generations have passed. Parenting has changed, as well as kind of society, as well as social media and technology. Everything's changed since when they raised their kids. So we want to be able to provide support for them during this generation. That support could be technical or technology services, how to navigate technology, whether that is social media or even parent portal or the website, as well as supports for any like food insecurity, financial insecurity. And then we would like to be able to extend a support group for those grandchildren being raised by those grandparents. It is a unique circumstance, but it is not an uncommon circumstance. We want to be able to give those students the support they need and meet some peers that are in the same situation as them. And I think, right. And then moving forward, looking for spring 2025 to fall 2025. So this spring, we are looking to establish that kinship program with Alden and Akron. We are looking to have that up and running by April, having that support group once a week after hours around 5 to 7 p.m. Continue building onto the referrals of Horizons and Violante. Build up upon our Family Support Center internal referrals, and then establish a family fun event so then we can kind of continue to advertise the Family Support Center, keep getting our name out there, keep getting those referrals and touching families that may be in need. During the summer, I'd like to engage in more administrative work, so that is grant writing for funding any programs that we have, continuing to support Horizons and Violante. I'd like to get to a point where with the grant funding through the state, I could possibly provide counseling services for families. If families don't have insurance or they can't cover the copay, I would be able to have a funding through grants to be able to provide that service for families and pay for that family. I would like to establish screening tools for administration, so if there's any screenings that we would like to get out there, whether it's UPK all the way up to 12th grade, I'd like to work on building some of those screening tools. I'd like to establish a committee for the Family Support Center to kind of help plan events or plan activities that we would like to hold in the future, and maintain current partnerships that we have in the process. Next fall, 2025, I'd like to expand upon those partnerships in district and outside communities. I'd like to establish trainings and support for staff as the community needs assessment that we sent out in the beginning of this year, in the beginning of the school year last year. A lot of staff did report that they would like some trainings and supports. I like to establish programs in the districts and create the second community needs assessment to see what we've been successful in meeting the needs of staff, students, and parents, and what they feel like they still would like, and making sure that they have an opportunity to be heard.
Just as far as the staff development stuff goes, I do want to point out that her first staff development opportunity will be tomorrow, or Friday, with our secondary teacher aides, doing some work around de-escalation strategies and recognizing kids in stress and how to work with them at the ground level to de-escalate some of that. So that is actually starting really now before we even get into next fall.
I think that's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia, for the context and the work and the program you're building out. We really appreciate that, and that was a good presentation. Chris, you look good standing there in a suit.
Thanks. That's really
just real quick, you've been here for a little while now, Julia. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Why is this microphone so loud?
I feel very supported in this district, whether it is at the primary levels, middle school, high school. I feel really supported. I really feel like not only the Board of Education, but administration, the social workers, the school counselors, I feel like everyone has been there to kind of help guide me and support me with whatever I need, especially with the committee. I've reached out to a couple of our coworkers and colleagues, and everyone has been very welcoming with open arms. So at this moment, I am really happy with where I am. And I couldn't thank this district enough for supporting me on this journey to build this family support center for the community.
Thank you. It's good to hear.
Yeah. I want to thank, I know I've come down a couple of times with situations and you're always very responsive. I want to thank Ms. Cheney too, because she's the department head for the people you thanked. And so thank you for leading that department and making sure she feels welcome and get that support here. And thank you for those services. Mr. Hershey's keeping me up to date on different things, and the fact that Horizon is full, and we're looking to expand that already in the different partnerships of getting the students out where they're going to have ongoing care. And some of the stories he's told me, it's really made a difference in people's lives beyond what any of the school counselors or social workers could do. And not because they're not talented, it's just, it's a different venue. So thank you for adding that dimension to the school district.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to a budget update by Mr. John Wolski, where he's going to tell us how awesome the state is being.
Thank you. I did a full presentation in January. I'm going to do another full one in March, but this is kind of just an update. It's meant to be, a quick kind of touch on a few things that we talked about in January, just give you an update of where they are today and what we're planning to do. The big one, of course, we were talking about was state aid. We didn't know where the governor was going to open up with her first proposal. We were worried last year she had a negative $600,000 to our district, and that was going to be a big problem if we had that happen again. The good news is it's not going to be a negative change to foundation aid. She's actually implementing a formula that'll have a minimum 2% increase for any district in New York State. That's what we qualify for, the minimum 2% increase. So that's good news. It would be a real different conversation and different things we have to do if it was the other way, so we're happy with that. We are hoping that through negotiations that will bump up higher. We'd love to see it at 3% or 4%. Wishful thinking probably, but that's what we're hoping for in the process when we talk to our legislators and things like that. We still don't feel that is adequately funding our school. We know that inflation, CPI this year is at 2.95% right now. It's been 4% the year before. It was 8% the year before that. So we know we're still behind on that. And 2% doesn't begin to help us with that, but it's still a positive at least going forward. Expense-based aids are going to be funded at the same formula of reimbursement. So that's good that they're not going to make any major changes to that. But it doesn't include, again, inflationary growth on those cost area either.
And a great example of that is some of the BOCES aid. You get aid on his salary there, and the aid of the salary you get is up to $30,000. That hasn't changed in almost 2 decades. So even though they're doing it at the same rate, it's not going up with inflation. So just to be clear with that.
Other proposals, she had many proposals, as we know, different things about cell phone use in school, other proposals, but the other one that I'll touch on here is that state funding of breakfast and lunch for all students, which I think is great. It's going to make things a lot easier with how we administer our food program. With that, we were always concerned that during COVID, when lunches were free, reduced for everybody, we were concerned that we weren't getting those applications from people, and those applications are important for driving our aid ratios on different things. Part of her proposal is to eliminate free reduced lunch data and replace that with economically disadvantaged data. That's also a recommendation of the Rockefeller Institute, but that's a good thing, I think, because we won't be tied to those applications being returned or not returned to our district when lunches are free. So that's another positive, I think, in the proposals.
Now, John did mention about the cell phones, just to be real quick where that is. She unveiled a restrict smartphones in school use. This is K-12 throughout the entire school day. It requires schools to give parents a way to contact students during the day, which I guess would be going to back to the old way of where they would call the office and the office would have to call the kids down because if they don't have phones, I don't really know of another way. Schools will have flexibility to create their own implementation ban. She did say she'll put $13.5 million in for pouches or cubbies or other storage devices. I mean, I don't know if we could use some of that money to redo some of our lockers or something, because if a student has a locker, I would think if we told them to put it, would be in there. See if there's anything else important in this. It does say we can develop our own plan and for storing them in the smart day. What I did talk to my student cabinets about this to get their feelings. And they do feel it's important for students to have distracted learning, but they also do feel it's important for students to learn how to have their cell phones. Like for a board meeting, I have my cell phone here, previous meetings in December. Obviously, I was engaged in it because those were when we were calling snow days. So depending on what's going on, how and when you use it, it's important. And just banning it and not having it doesn't teach you that skill. And also they say if something's going on at home, they have to discern that, and teachers should be able to make rules and monitor their classrooms and have systems of, no, you cannot use it at this time, or here's a time we expect you to be using it to do whatever on it. I remember previous years, a bunch of years ago, as a student cabinet, a student came to me and said, Mr. Schofield, I'd like to use my cell phone in school. We're not allowed to. This is maybe a decade ago. And I'm like, why? What could you possibly use your cell phone for? We give you a computer. And they said, well, this is what my schedule is. I'm an active person. I put my homework in here and everything else so I can plan my day. And they talked about a few other things, and I'm like, well, that all makes sense. So why are we restricting them from the mechanism they use to take care of themselves? I do think it's good that social media does cause problem for students. Is that happening at school or outside of school? My student cabinet says most of it is happening outside of school. Not all of it, never would be an all, but they say that's the biggest problem. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because I know other schools, actually one school south of us did implement no cell phones in the schools. It can be a local decision of what are we having problem with, how do we want to solve it? Is it one student causing a problem and we restrict that one student, or is it a group of students, or is it the whole student body? And I think that should be a more localized decision rather than a state across the board.
Just because you brought up, just to follow up on that real quick, because I personally agree with Doug, and then Erie County School Board Association has changed. They were neutral on this, and now they have changed to that they want the school districts to have control over what, if anything, happens. They cited a bunch of reasons. There was superintendents who were there who cited reasons that people don't think about, like there are diabetic students that use their cell phones to monitor their blood sugar level, which they'd be allowed to do it, but then the superintendent said, now it identifies that student, because everyone's gonna know they have a phone. So the superintendent brought that up. So that's why Erie County has changed, they're gonna advocate that we or individual districts get to choose, and then a couple other districts who began to explore it, brought to attention that it is something that at least in their district has become a very hot button issues for parents, where parents want their kids to have their cell phones. So once again, the biggest change there is it's local advocacy, and that's what Erie County School Board says changed to.
Thank you. And one more thing on the state free breakfast lunch program. I think this, if it does take place, it seems like it'll have a lot of support at state level. It wouldn't start until September of 25 is what we assume. Tax cap calculation I have, is this still in draft form? It is coming in, this is something that we just put our numbers in, and it creates the allowable tax levy increase. And right now, based on the numbers we put in the middle in blue, you can see it's the allowable growth factor. It's 2%. That's where the phrase tax cap comes in, because it's capped at 2%. When in reality, the CPI is 2.95, but the formula says you can use 2% max, so that's why it's called 2% tax cap. But there are other factors that play into it. You can see there's other things for pilot payments. Capital expenses get factored in there as well. There's certain exclusions that occur. And right now, like I said, we are at 3.54% increase on the levy. Just wanted to show you campus enrollment and what I call it on-campus enrollment, because there's a lot of ways to take enrollment. You could look at total students. Some students have outside placements and are put in different areas, programs that are outside of our district. I'm just looking at students that are in our district, using our facilities, using our teaching staff. And you can see the numbers here are pretty consistent. We had a bump up when we went to UPK 2 years ago. And again, staying pretty flat going forward. And we project next year right around the same 2,060 or 70 or so.
And regarding UPK, did we end up having a wait list, or?
No, we did not have a wait list.
Okay,
we actually have a couple openings right now.
Okay.
So it took care of everyone that at
Applied.
the time wanted it.
Okay.
That's not to say, because some people are unsure, that they didn't go out and secure
Yeah.
some type of daycare or preschool somewhere else, and if they had a fact they could get in, might have stayed with it, but we do have 2 openings right
Okay,
now.
Cool, thanks.
Just wanted to touch base on professional development funding and let everyone know, we had these COVID grants and different things a couple of years ago that were intended to be used for professional development and things like that to fight learning loss with our students. But you can see here how that funding is really dropping off. Both the big ones, the American Recovery Plan and the ESSER funding are ended, and we don't have that funding available this year, or just a slight amount. Dr. Dudek did secure Safe and Civil Schools grant to help with professional development, but that is also ending. And then we also, every year, have Title II funding, which we use for professional development, and you can see that's trailed off a little bit, but it's a pretty consistent number every year.
So what we're working on is a 5-year projection of what will be coming forward as far as professional development needs. If you remember, we have the Blue Ribbon Commission, we have a new form of APPR coming, we have approximately 6 new Regents exams requiring new labs and investigations. We have the continuation of our reading, science of reading on our courses, and New York State will be rolling out math in a similar fashion for K through 5, plus MTSS and SEL. The needs are going to be great.
You can see right now, we're seeing next year, we're projecting about half the money available. If we keep things the way they are with our general fund, about half the money available for professional development as we have this year. What we're hoping to do is, try and funnel another 50,000 at least to help. That doesn't even put us where we are this year going to next year, but I think it'll help. It's a start point. We're trying to funnel more money in that because it's a valuable thing in our district that we want to support. Some good news here on BOCES expenses for next year. These are general areas that are divided by districts that are within Erie 2 BOCES, and it's done by student count, basically. So based on that, some districts are probably growing a little bit, so they take on a little more of these expenses. So the good news is these areas we're seeing almost very little change at all, which is good. That helps. It's about $500,000 of expense that are going up, way less than 1%. So that's good news too.
And I want to thank our Erie 2 BOCES for this. 4 months ago, because I go to superintendent meetings, I'm on a committee, and I looked at the people on the committee and the representatives from Erie 2 there, and I said, I am not getting any more money. I can't withstand any increase in your budget. Now, there's 2 parts of the budget. This is one, their administrative component, and then there's the other part where we pay for services, which John will talk about in a minute. 2 different ones. I'm only talking about this one here. And I said, I can't fathom any growth here. I can't go up. I'm being restrained by the state, and you come in with 3, 4, any percent, and they've done well over the years keeping it. I said, you're going to have to cut. You're going to have to figure out how to do it, where you come in with basically nothing, and I want to thank them for listening and make that happen. It was amazing when I said that the first time how many people came running over our table to hear what I was talking about. But, just let you know, we should thank them for tightening their belts too.
And we'll also show you next month, I'll have a graph showing that our as a district, our combined wealth ratio, indicating that we are wealthier on average of New York State, that's going up a little bit, so it cuts back on those reimbursement aids. So BOCES aid reimbursement rates going down, the transportation aid reimbursement's going down. So another thing we're fighting with as well going forward. One area of BOCES, one we talked about, I think, at the last meeting about career and technical education. We did a great presentation. We do have more students going to that program. Basically, how they project next year's expenses, they take the students that are in the program this year. They look at 2 enrollment times. They look at October and February, and I think they take the average of those 2 numbers, and they create your bill for next year. Right now, we stand at 115 students in the program this year. That's what they estimate for us to have in our bill for next year. So that's a big increase, but we're going to build our budget to deal with that.
And, again, looking to our high school, looking to our guidance department, because this is one of the things the board said that they're very interested in, is creating opportunities, having students attend career technical educations to have this experience, to help them move into their careers. And you can see the change in that has moved forward. So that is something the board asked for. So, right now we're looking to support students wanting to go there still next year, even though it is a big change.
And something we don't put a cap on that from year to year, how many students can participate in that. So right now there is no cap on that. Other things that we're looking at, there's the impact of retirements. Dave Sellen is reviewing those. We have letters from different employees, and we're considering how those will impact next year's budget and how we replace those people who are leaving. We are working to retain the building-based subs. We're looking to retain the academic assistance program. We do 2 days a week after school program. We want to keep that in place for next year. We talked about the Family Support Center. That's partially funded with a grant next year, but we want to continue to keep that in our district. And then retain our school resource officers at each of our buildings.
And for the Family Support Center, is that just retaining Julia, or will there be more resources required?
Right now, the only thing we've come to the board is with Julia.
Okay.
That's not built into the budget for the year we're in. We were able to carry some grant funds over, so we're looking to continue that with putting some money in now from the grant and from the local budget. And so it would not be adding any more staff members or anything. It would just be her continuing to work to expand the services, like she said, Horizon, Violante, those type of, they're providing services, outside services for our students. In the future, would we like to have it grow based on what she's doing? I would think that would be something that's nice, but we're not looking at that currently for next year.
Okay. And then for the SROs, do we have criteria on, like, for after-school activities when an SRO is needed, or are they just at, like, all events?
They're at all events.
All events.
So what we do
Okay.
have is we have, and John will correct me if I'm wrong because he watches it very closely. They are at, like Patrick Medical over in the middle school, which was a great performance. I was there. You stole my thunder with that because it was awesome. And so we have one at there, but then we also have one every day, I'll say from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock during the practice time.
Yeah.
But when there's events like cheerleading over there, we do have SROs, and depending on the type of event, the size of event depends on the number.
Okay.
John's still reviewing the right staffing numbers depending on the size and the event. I did see 2 of them at the musical for the middle school, and I did kind of say, well, do we really need 2 there? Not that I don't want the right number there, it's just there was one entrance that people should be coming in.
Yeah.
But that's a self-evaluation we're constantly
Okay.
doing.
All right.
We basically have one after school from 3 to 6, unless there's really something odd going on that we think we need. That one person's trying to cover an entire campus, plus across the street. If there's something going on that are different, then we'll add another one here and there, but it's not every day.
And for an efficiency too, we had a few more on when there's different games on different sides of the road and stuff. But for what we expended on them, John, and actually the SROs came to John with this, of saying if we were to get them a golf cart, we could reduce one there because then they'd be more mobile about getting around. So we'd have the same service in a different way and to be more effective.
That's a good idea.
And, I mean, just to touch on the SROs, I know the one thing I've heard from a lot of people in the community that they really enjoy is the wrong word. They really appreciate seeing them at events, and they go out of the way. And I know this should sound crazy, but, the games I've been to, parents' behavior tends to improve when SROs are present, which is important. It really is, because they do make a huge difference. Just their presence stops people from saying things that they probably shouldn't say.
And I really, really like the update. I forget it was just a couple months ago, that the SROs provide updates to the board. I think we need to keep that going because they're doing a lot of great stuff, and it was nice to hear from them.
Yeah, I forgot to ask Nora today to get a hold of Chad because I want to do one for this Friday. I know I did get an email from the SROs, or not from an SRO, from a parent who someone had trouble with a car and the SROs went out of the way to help them. And that's just one of the nice things they do. They don't have to. But working with the kids, I know I was at Elma today and they were talking to me about the new procedures that the SRO worked about, safety, trying to make that better for entering the building, cleaning that up, talking about the stops and the doors. They're constantly, what John was at a safety committee, they're constantly looking at new ways to improve the district. Right now, they're talking a lot about cameras. And I got an idea for money for the cameras from phase 3.
That'll be in there too.
Yeah, so I got a new idea. I was talking to Tim today. I'll tell you tomorrow.
Good. We just want to give you we don't want to dissect each one of these individually right now, but we are, as an administrative staff, dissecting these individually. These are requests that the school administrators have brought to us, just to kind of share them with you, let you know that we're working on things like this. They're usually a yes or no or a maybe. An example of a maybe is a lot of them you're going to see classroom furniture. We try to replace classroom furniture every year, but it's a maybe because we let the year play out, and we get to April or May, we make sure nothing unexpectedly has happened that we have to cover with the budget. And if we do have some funding available, we do allocate it to a building and try and replace 1 or 2 classrooms of furniture and keep that up to date, because the capital projects really don't touch on furniture, so we kind of have to do it ourselves.
The one on these is unfortunately is typically a no, is like additional technology equipment, and you'll see for some of that in middle school too. Buying the equipment, this reoccurring balance with us not being able to keep up with the cost of inflation, it's hurting putting additional money in there for different types of equipment and things to take care of it. We're finding what we have to do, and this has been a theme for the last year or two that we've talked about with the board. You see a 3.5 this year, but when it's a lower number, under 2 in the 2s, should we be going out for a 60% vote to get money to move into those categories to take care of different equipment and things like that? You get that money, once it's in there, then it can continue on, but we're fighting with keeping up with the CPI.
Yeah, I mean, not to belabor this, but I really think we need to look at what we're doing with the student laptops. I know my son and daughter wrestle with their laptops most nights, and just...
Yeah, I can tell you the plan we have right now, if you want to ponder that, as we come back to budget meeting next month, and Mary Jo will correct me if I'm wrong, but in kindergarten, you would get a laptop that should last for 5 years. In 5th grade, you would get one that would last for 4 years. In 9th grade, a computer for 4 years. We think that would be a good life for it. I don't know how old my computer is. I'm well over 4 years. I have a Surface.
What is it currently, though? I mean, that's what you were...
That's what we do.
We do it currently.
Yeah, that's what we currently do.
Okay.
And the reason we went with that way is we said we want students to have ownership of their computers. And so therefore, if things are breaking on it, they're the ones taking care of it. If they're having continual problems, then they might be replaced out. We have videos of kids that they tape themselves, open up a computer and putting pictures behind the screen. We don't think if they're sharing computers that another student should have to deal with that abuse of a computer. So if we were to change the plan, we would be buying another 200 computers a year. So right now we're buying roughly 600 computers a year. You figure about 200 for each class, then we have spares and things like that if they break. So then that would be the cost to change that plan. And that's the problem right there, because do you get computers faster or do we buy some other type of equipment? I know in the middle school, I wish they had stayed here for the technology, but what they're using, not hummingbirds, yeah, those little things that they program and move around. They're in a replacement cycle, or they should be in a replacement cycle to be updated, and they're not.
So what they're doing right now in the middle school with their equipment is on staff day on Friday, they'll be working with a BOE representative going through their inventory, determining what's still useful for them and what's useful still, but our kids have outgrown it because they've experienced it. And that equipment will be moved down to the elementary school to expand their experiences. Additionally, when we talk about the CTE courses at the high school for DDI, did I say that right? DDP. I always get the acronyms wrong, I'm sorry. Some of the programs require higher RAM, higher speed of the computers. And so what we also did is we funded a specific lab for those classes. So when the students are taking those classes, they can still make use of the programs that they need. And that goes, we have students doing the full Adobe suite and other engineering programs.
So right now with the budget, you saw about where the levy would be at a regular 50% vote, 3.54.
Yep.
You see where this governor put out at a 2%, and John with the budget is in the red still. If we were to get to the black, then I would say, good, we can add something. Where we are now with it being in the red, we have to tighten our belts in some areas still. But then on top of that, if we want to do something different, add something, it's not a matter of, oh, let's put some money here. It's a matter of, let's take money from X and give it to Y. So that's where it's terrible, because if you're taking from X, these students, are lacking, but also over here at Y, if we could make it better for these students. So which one do you do?
And just I think that for the life of a normal computer with like these have 8, gigs of RAM, or even 4 gigs of RAM, for what our students use them for is more than enough within 5 years. I know they had like iCore 9s and iCore 7 and Radeons, but it's just, they would never use that capability. And I just strongly feel, just because it came up, that unless it was something totally extraordinary, that we'd ever get the 60% vote to go through the tax cap.
What do we do with the computers when
There's a pile of them. Do we recycle?
they would get recycled because we buy them through BOE,
Yes.
so BOE owns them. We don't get anything back
No.
on them. If we could find a service, and maybe some years it depends on the market, because there's items in there, gold and whatever other elements, that depending on what the markets are, so sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. We do keep a bunch of them on as spare parts. So therefore, we don't have to go and buy spare parts, and that is a huge cost. When we first came out with we had an insurance that parents would pay that covered a lot of costs if the students damaged their computers. But then right around COVID, the board made a decision. They said, no, we want to fund all the damage to it, intentional or unintentional. And so therefore, we have been footing that bill. So if the board wants more information on that, it's a big discussion, and that would be something we could do at the district planning conference. We don't need to decide that. I know the format's on this one, but the items aren't, so keep that in your mind if we ask for any items. If you want to know what we used to do, we can definitely talk about that then.
As you see on this list, just for the high school alone, you can see that some of these are yeses, because I've already said we're going to support career technical education, we're going to support after-school program on 2 days a week, and we're going to continue, the last one, continue to support and have daily building subs in the building. So there's some yeses already in here as well. On the middle school side, it's similar stuff again. You're seeing the classroom equipment. Some entrances they have some issues with key fob entrances. All those things we will address individually with that administrator.
The one thing I want to, if you go back one, key fobs I find a very interesting one. I can tell you right now, that's going to be a no, because there are plenty of doors with key fobs on to get into the buildings. It's not a security issue, because we want to keep people out if there's an emergency. And so therefore, no, it's about $1,500 to put one on certain doors, and more than that, depending on the door and whether it's remote or not, and whether there's a PIN close to it. We've looked at that. I've explained that to people. I am not doing things with key fobs for convenience sake. We're doing things for safety. We are looking at some locks that are key locks, maybe switching those. That could be possible. Really, that should have been brought to me a few years ago. And the screening tool people are talking about, I know a lot of other districts use something called the Raptor, and that seems to be the buzzword now. Everyone wants to have Raptor. I don't, from everything I've done, all the research I've done, and even talking to the SROs, there are other things that would be create safer, like zero eyes using the cameras for safety of the students, because what screening does is you put your driver's license in it, and it comes back, there's no problems with you, and prints out a little badge. No one should be coming in our building unless we know who they are. No one should be coming in our building unless it's a person who has a reason to be in here, period. So the fact I have to screen somebody means I don't know who's showing up. If I don't know who's showing up, they don't have an appointment, and they should not be allowed in the building by just showing up and having a cold call. And so that's why I'm, with that one, pushing back at that, and that's also, I think zero eyes would be better. That's a way of detecting if someone has a weapon while they're in the parking lot, before they get to the school. What we have to do to get to there is the cameras. So John said he would, I don't know if that's...
It's coming up eventually.
Coming up somewhere, so not to steal.
And when you see on here, you see some foundation staff, response intervention staff, that's point two. You're talking about people. That doesn't mean adding new people. It could be reallocating people who already have. So that doesn't mean necessarily adding, just so you know. Intermediate school, cafeteria air conditioning, it's a reasonable request. All the other cafeterias are air conditioned. We didn't get that one in the last capital project. We will get it over the summer and make sure they're just like the other cafeterias in September. Upgrading bathroom stalls, that's something we can do internally here and take care of that. Primary buildings, again, classroom replacement, furniture. And all buildings, we're talking about cameras. And the issue with cameras is they were all purchased about 11 or 12 years ago. I think it was a capital project maybe back then.
It was over different time periods, so they're of different ages.
But a lot were bought about 12 years ago.
Bought about the same time.
And now they're all coming due kind of the same time, and we're talking about 60 to 90 cameras really that have to be addressed. Not immediately, but we have to evaluate where they are. There's newer technologies that have, can span more area. Can we cut, instead of having two cameras in a room, can we have one and cover the same distance? That is possible. So we're going to have people from BOCES come in and kind of evaluate what we have now and come up with a replacement schedule that we can manage over the coming years.
Yep, and I talked to Officer Barry about it, one of the SROs. He's the person we use as the lead one. And I said, basically we're going to have what we have, what we'd like to have, and then how that could tie into the next safety thing if we talk about zero eyes.
So that's it for the update. Any questions?
I have one.
All right.
Just because I know some people had asked, did we find an answer about the snow days on whether or not during the state of emergency that if we were docked a snow day for the list?
So for the snow days, yes, we have an answer. Is it a final answer? No. And what I mean by that is John actually a few years ago got the paperwork for that year with snow days. A lawyer has to sign off on it. We have to submit it to the state. The state reviews it. We will not get an answer whether they accept it or not until like September.
That's the scary part, because we'll submit our information. We'll submit our information at the end of the school year. We submit our data and our calendar. The calendar will show that we're a couple days short, and then we have to submit separately an approval from a signed statement from our attorney saying this is why we did it, because there was state of emergency declared and blah blah blah. We have to wait to make sure that, and so there's a number of months we're going to be a little concerned that
now
that gets approved. So
with that too, if we stay exactly how we are now. We don't need it. We're in good shape. Yeah. We still have 180 days in. In fact, the high school has 2 more days to use, so we're not out of days either. And actually, all buildings have 2 more days to use because in our agreement, the last 2 days of high school attendance, anyone UPK through 8th grade are not in those last 2 days. The agreement says if we run out of snow days, those 2 days become student attendance days. The state says if you have that, you need to use that. So technically, everyone has 2 more days. Even if we applied for it, we would not get it if we don't switch those days to student attendance days. So we have to do that. After that, then we would do the submission to the state and everything. And to be clear to the public too, I will never not have a snow day because we're out of school days. If it's unsafe to come to school, it's unsafe to come to school. I'll always stick to that, whether we have 20 snow days left or we're in the whole 10. If it's unsafe, it's unsafe.
And some of those days we've had will qualify for that exemption, it seems. And of course, we're not the only ones. There's all these districts in Erie County that have the same situation, so.
Okay.
And some are in a situation where they already have to apply. One thing, it's not a question, but it's a statement I'll make. Jane Sullivan, who's not here today, did tell us and did write out saying, it wasn't a Friday message of mine, that you can get your applications now to run for the Board of Education. So if anyone's listening is interested, please see Nora to get that. But she is not running next year. She's going to retire. So she gave us that information. She's not here tonight because she's, and her and Heather, just so everyone knows, are in Albany talking to our legislators about what they can do better for schools. So thank you for going there. It's unfortunate it was on a board night, but we have enough board members, we can be everywhere. And so, but she's not running. We thank her for her service immensely. So if you guys are watching when you're driving back, and if you are watching, you shouldn't be watching and driving, so hopefully you're in the rest area. Charging your car. But I just wanted everyone to know that, so it's clear, so there's no confusion whether she's running or not, because some people do ask that question. So thank you for your service too, Jane, immensely.
And I believe our website right now has all the information on how to get your name on the proposition for vote in May. I think the applications are due around April 18th. So there you go. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the district planning conference review format, and the easiest thing to be said on this right now is that in your board docs you have last year's agenda. So what I would encourage everyone to do is to look at it, study it, and then think of, change your ideas they have, and we could email them to Nora and Doug. So like it's a Tuesday, January 23rd, breakfast is 8 o'clock. Bob says, hey, I'm up, I'd really like to do breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. He could submit that through, and then we could decide if we want to be here at 6:30 in the morning with Bob. But that's what I would do instead of just shooting things off the cuff. Look at it and then email in. The next thing, just to remind everyone that our student roundtable and staff roundtable is tomorrow. Heather, Todd, and Keith, Heather J, have volunteered, and they'll be there for sure. So thank you. I do want to thank Keith on that one because I'm going to be having other roundtables during that time, so I cannot be there. But that's it for that. And any questions or comments? We are now going to turn it over to the superintendent for his report.
Okay. You will be getting the email too. We did receive the policy. It's not on here for a student on the Board of Education. So Nora will be reaching out to everyone to set a work session date for that. The next thing is open communication. Last time we had an individual come and talked about the capital project. They spoke eloquently about it, but to cut it real short, because they covered so much, they're pleased with the direction the board took with it. I did call them, follow up with them, and they're pleased that they were staying with no tax impact and taking care of what needs to be taken care of. And he did ask a question about the funding. I did go over that with him. So I believe he's satisfied at this time. The next thing is strategic plan timeline. For the strategic plan timeline, working backwards. So in February, it's presenting the timeline to you. In March, we will present the priorities, the areas. I actually reviewed those with my administrative cabinet yesterday. So we'll be getting that to you. In April, we'll be developing surveys. And then in May, which we'd show the board too, May, the surveys would be going out. They go to employees, voters, community, parents, students. Then, and also in May, we'd be reviewing the surveys. June, we'd be developing our plan. In July, we'd be presenting that during whatever format at the district planning conference. In those, there might be some areas that we're reaching out for committees. I'm not saying yes or no to any of them because it'll depend on some of the feedback from surveys of what they are. And we are going to I told the administrative team, I am not looking for a survey that has hundreds of questions. I want to narrow it down to the focuses of what we're interested in and not just a smorgasbord of everything. The next thing, regionalization update. Dr. Dudek, myself, and Mr. Dobmeyer, we went to the first regionalization meeting for Erie 2 of Erie County School Districts. We were grouped with Holland and Orchard Park. We talked about SEL and transportation. In SEL, we said, really, we're the size of our districts. There might be some service we can share, but we think more importantly right now is sharing data and information and how they're doing things, and maybe even talking about having the same method of questionnaires for students so we can compare data. How are their programs doing? How are our programs doing, to learn from each other? Because my question to them was, well, if we have someone working and they're working 8 hours, where's the extra time we can share them? Well, if everyone's working full, we don't have bodies to share. By no means this was the first conversation, so it doesn't mean anything's done, but there was no talk of anyone going anywhere. Transportation, we said the problem is finding people. So we're trying to work through that, even talking to contracted transportation, they're having trouble finding people. And we talked about, would upping salaries help this, or would we just be stealing from each other and fighting over for each other? So we're having good conversations there. No real solutions. Again, it depends on the size of our districts, makes it tough. There's another one coming up. I forget the date off the top of my head, that I'll be working with other Erie County school districts and also with the same group. Do you remember what those topics were? There'll be 2 different topics as we go through this document. So really nothing has changed there. And if nothing else, I would move on to recognitions. So for recognitions, I have ITAC, did a funding request to Senator Melchewski, and we're awarded $10,000 for 4 buddy benches that'll be going in the Iroquois district at different things. And basically, if you need a buddy, you sit on the bench and someone's going to come over and sit with you. So other schools have done it, and at the elementaries, it's kind of nice to have. The other thing is 6 students of our 6 through 12 composed that Erie 1 Art Challenge. There are 120 students going against our 6, 14 different schools, 2 hours to create their work. One of Mrs. Payne's students, Sam J., came in 2nd place in the advanced art category. Congratulations. Then the principal at Dunkirk, Edie Mia School, and a former cheer coach, cheer mom, was at a competition where our cheerleaders were, along with the Dunkirk varsity team. This was at Eden competition, and that she emailed us, said our cheerleaders need to be recognized, that the Dunkirk team is new, young, and doesn't have a lot of experiences, and our team was encouraging, supportive of the new team, and congratulate them, inspire them to continue to improve. So great job to the girls with that show of sportsmanship. The 2024 Fall Scholarship Athletic Team Awards. This is where the 75% of the team is over a 90. So therefore, congratulating the student athletes and coaches for varsity football, varsity cheerleading, varsity cross country, varsity field hockey, varsity golf, varsity boys soccer, varsity girls soccer, varsity boys volleyball, varsity girls volleyball, varsity cheerleading, varsity girls swimming, and varsity girls tennis. I can't think of a sport that wasn't mentioned off the top of my head, so congratulations to all those students. Yeah, volleyball was there. The next one here is high school fall sports super seniors, 90% average over the previous 6 semesters. So it's not just one, it's 6 semesters over a 90. The high school, Ella from field hockey, Lucas from boys cross country, Ryan from football, Alexis from cheerleading, and Logan from boys soccer. She must take after her mom. What do we have now? The retired educators in New York came to Wales to present Karen Landau, Taryn Gallagher, or Tanya Gallagher, and Michelle Porzio with a check for $1,000. They applied to REN for a grant for an improvement project to support inclusive environment of students with special needs. Congratulations to them. And I already mentioned the drama performance, and I got to tell you, honestly, there's different shows I like better than others, and this is one of my favorite shows. I changed my mind. I love this show after watching our kids put it on. It was phenomenal. So congratulations to all those thespians. The artists, they did an absolute great job. I'd say go see it, but it's over. So go to the high school one instead. That's it.
Okay, I'd like to move on to recognition of guests for agenda items. I don't believe we have any, Nora?
No.
Okay, we will move on to discussion of agenda items for 10.01 to 22.13. I would just like to point out that the donations we had this month, Mr. Jeffrey Trekoff donated $750 to pay off negative school food balances, and then Mr. Robert Urbanski donated $1,000 to the arts and $1,000 to the music, and then the Iroquois Foundation donated, 4 separate donations of $250 to purchase different things for different classrooms, flexible seating, Lego education, collapsible wagons. So I just kind of wanted to point that out.
The one thing I do want to point out for the board and everyone in public too is typically for administrator substitutes, we have them when there's a long absence and it's almost like an internship coming on. You heard Mr. O'Brien speak earlier about some unique situations that are happening in the middle school. So we will have a person that comes in. They're not coming in daily. I want to be clear with that to the public and everyone. It would be in the situations where one of the current 2 administrators is not in the building. If it's a different case than that, they would reach out and get, contact me for the need. And the individual would be coming in to take care of front-end offices. You could see the emotion on Mr. O'Brien's face, and so when we're going through certain things, and if one administrator was out and there was only one in the building and they were taking care of that situation, I want that administrator, and actually this was a request from the administrator, so I'm supporting him in his request, the principal there, that they could stay at that meeting to make sure everything's done appropriately through these emotions, and know the administrator is not taking care of the social emotional, but sometimes there needs to be support there, decisions made, communication, getting messages out to the parents, getting messages out to the staff, other students, and they need to be focused on that, not worrying about a student who threw a milk carton in the cafeteria or someone coming late or whatever of the thousands of more very important things that happen up in the front. So therefore, that's why that's in here. So just in case there's any questions, I wanted to be clear with all of that. And thank you for that from the board. Hopefully, I shouldn't say thank you. Hopefully you'll support that.
Not in the consensus agenda.
That's all I have.
And I just want to jump in and thank Michelle Hill for all her support and dedication she had for our students here at Iroquois throughout the years. And then welcome Lynn Cheka. She's going to be joining us as a bus driver. So welcoming her.
Okay, we'll move on to the consensus agenda. The basic purpose of the consent agenda is to act upon routine matters in expeditious manner. Items placed on the consent agenda are determined by the board president and vice president in cooperation with the superintendent, and are those which are considered common to the operation of the district and normally require no special board discussion or debate. Board members have the ability and the responsibility of reviewing the consent agenda ahead of time. A board member may request that any item on the consent agenda be removed and inserted at the appropriate place on the regular agenda. The president will provide the initial motion followed by a request for a second for these items. Next, we're going to kind of do this in pieces. Is there any request to withdraw any item? Is there a request to add any item? Now, I'm just going to make a quick note because I'm about to ask for a motion for 10.01 to 22.13. There's also item number 23, which we'll be voting on separately. It's an item that Heather is not going to vote on. So just to keep in mind, that's why it's broken up like that. Okay? Okay, so can I have a second to approve the consensus item 10.01 to 22.13? I need a second on that?
I second.
Okay, all in favor? So it shows 5 in favor and no no's. The consent agenda carries. Okay, next we are going to go to item 23.01. The superintendent recommends the approval of the appointment of Andrew Jacobs, who has a permanent certificate of administrative supervisor, to be appointed as a substitute administrator on as as-need basis, effective February 13th, 2005 through June 30th, 2025, at a salary of $400 per day. Can I have a second? Seconded by Todd. All in favor? Shows 4 in favor. There's no nays. The motion carries. Okay, next, recognition of guests on any topic. Do we have any guests? No. Okay. Do we have a executive session required?
I don't have one.
No. Okay. Then I would look for a second for a motion to adjourn. Seconded by Todd. All in favor?
Are you doing the first for all of them, or just the consensus agenda?
Oh, well, that's okay. I was doing it for all of them.
Okay. So-
Jim's the first.
So I'm the first.
Okay, then say the first for the motion to adjourn.
Okay. So I am the first for the motion to adjourn. Todd was the second, and the vote was 5 yeas and no noes.
I just wanted to point out now
Carries.
that the meeting was done as president, you did great control, taking the mic away from the vice president. I didn't realize he didn't have one.
Strategic.
I'm glad he's smiling, because that meant to be a joke.